Hello and welcome to another episode of Flood City with CzarPeppers, or I should say Flood City 2. I really wish I had my other mic working again, because this one, no matter what I seem to do with the volumes, it seems to always get a lot of distortion and stuff, but it's what I'm going to have to use for now. So, today is the big day, the 1 in 100 year flood. So I had been preparing for this day in the last video by upgrading the flood protection for this particular neighborhood right here and a few other things. Like this whole flood wall is all new. This one still, that one was always there, and it'll be interesting to see how the flood protection from this area of the city handles such a flood. So without further ado, let's just get into it. So today's flood is a 1.45, the largest flood that we've ever had. Before this, the largest flood we've ever had was a 0.97, I believe. So this one is going to be, I'll place it, actually I'm going to have to do some modifications. Okay, so now we have the two sources of water placed, which combined make a 1.45 flood. This one is, oh crap, I'm going to have to do a little, this is overflowing. So what I'm going to do is make a channel. This isn't part of the flood protection. It's just trying to make this damn thing work properly. So I'll make it flow into there. I'll come this around and hopefully that'll stop it from overflowing too much. Looks like we're making a flood wall too. Okay, so the first wave of this flood is obviously this water that's glitched out. That's going to move across towards the Operation Lancer Memorial. But hopefully I've made these a lot thicker so it would stop glitching through, and it seems to have worked. It's starting to dissipate. That was unintentional. Alright, the floodwaters are now going into the river, and soon waters will begin rising. So I think I've got my mic level sorted out. I've been having trouble with this mic, as I mentioned before. But let's just go over the flood defenses that we have. First of all, we have the dike for this neighborhood, the Cherry District. And then we have the dike for Lake Hills and the Oran Spillway that tries to protect it, along with the dike, the Lake Hills dike. On the other side of the river in the Old Town and whatnot, there's this primary dike, which is probably the oldest flood protection in the city. Further south, we have the Orlando Spillway and dike system, which protects all these neighborhoods, including Sir Seals Park and the Fox District, which goes all the way down here. Probably the longest dike, although there is a weak spot right here because I didn't feel like redoing the highways. But I don't think that this is a pretty high spot anyways. That's not where the priority. This and this are the really low areas over here that I want to worry about. Now, if we move up here, we can see the water pouring into the river. Wow, that's almost overflowing. I should make this thing a bit bigger. There we go. Now it can flow more freely into the channel going into the river. While we wait, we should take a look at our citizens. Bob Teague is the oldest citizen so far at 80 years old. He's the oldest citizen at the moment. I don't actually know who the oldest citizen of all time was. Orlando Summers is currently working at the fancy boutique. How fancy. And we have Richard McDowell currently working at the McDowell building. We've all seen that before. Sean Gambrill studying at university. Hank Hamburger working at the Mega Shopping Center. Where is that? Right up here. Ooh, that's might be a dangerous place to be in the coming flood. Where Trollface is driving home from his work at the sauna. Fancy car, eh? That's a pretty fancy car. Where does he live? Okay, he lives in... What neighborhood is this? Pine Square, that's what it is. Is there any neighborhoods I haven't given a district to yet? Yeah, yesterday I turned on the fire spreading mod and this happened. There's a way to turn down the severity of that mod, but it's kind of confusing, so I haven't bothered to do it yet. So I'm going to get rid of all these. Okay, and among those I've added a few more. First of all is Brett Scatterman. Scatterman. Scatterman? Shatterman? That guy. And Nate Wilson. Brett, I'm just going to call you Brent, is currently working at the convenience store. A highly educated person working at a convenience store. That must suck. And Nate Wilson is... Nate Wilson. He's 2. A child, uneducated, obviously, lives at the Mill Residence, which is over in the Orchard Square district area. And Mr. Shatterman, Shatterman, you're like Shatner, except not, lives in the Aspen Residence, which is over here in the Lindale area. So good luck to you guys. Hopefully you survive more than one episode. Okay, the floodwaters are starting to rise. The memorial is beginning to be flooded out, as it has been a billion times before. But there is a lot of water flowing into that river, so it will be interesting to see where it all goes. Hey, whoever made that cinematic mod thing, I accidentally hit like 66 seconds in a thing for the cinematic shot, and now I can't get out of it because I'm going to have to wait 66 seconds. That is stupid programming. Stupid. Fix it. Make it not, I just want to be able to press escape and actually be able to, escape from this purgatory. There we go. Now, a few areas that I'm worried about is, one, this area could be in a precarious situation. It also looks like they need some garbage disposal assets. Where am I going to put that? I'll just put that up here. I'll do yeah, that works. Get some water up there. Don't know why I said that with an accent. And we may as well get it into the power grid so it's actually doing something. Not much, but it's something. Okay, other areas that I'm a bit worried about. I'm not too worried about this area, but the Insane River could get pretty high and could threaten it. There's this area. I didn't make the dike go all the way up here because it's higher, and it's also impossible to make one because there's a bunch of stuff there already. But it could see some issues. And possibly this area. I'm not sure. And who knows, maybe the Asinine River might back up and flood this area from behind. But we'll just have to wait and see. It does look like the highway that we built the other day to support these industrial areas are still working all right. It's only a single lane highway. I figured I would upgrade it if I needed to, but it still seems all right. And it still seems all right down here, which then exits onto the main highway going through and out of the city. Look at all the traffic. Wonder where all these people are going. They're all going somewhere. Like, you're going to here. Interesting. Okay, I do have to say that this is the worst flooding I've ever seen up here. It's never actually flooded out the zoo and this whole area, so things are going to get pretty crazy. And also up here, it's really high. This should be an interesting video. I don't have demand for very much. There's a little bit of residential demand. I was trying to think about where I'm going to... Could always build some more down here, but that would be the easy thing to do. You know what? Actually, easy. Or maybe I should build up this little town a little more. So, because I don't have that much demand for residential. So, I'll do a little more there. They have water. And that should be enough for now. If this gets much bigger, I should really upgrade those dirt roads to actual proper paved roadways. Boy, is it ever... This is insane. This is way worse than even the 1 in 50 year flood. Can only imagine what the 1 in 200 year flood's going to be like. It is definitely starting to rise over here. Now, since I placed this water source first and then this one later, it also has a ways to go. The water levels will go up a little bit first and then they'll really go up. Now it's completely flooded out the Operation Lancer Memorial with the exception of the firehouse, and it is going far inland, making this river much wider than it was before. And I have a feeling this neighborhood is going to be in some trouble because it's getting quite a bit higher than it usually is. Hasn't really reached its way down here yet. Water levels are still normal here. Traffic is still running. Life is still normal. But that could change very quickly. All right, here comes a surge that's moving into Murphy Park, the neighborhood named after A.J. Murphy. The surge seems like it's going to go pretty far, now also flowing into the Insane River, likely going to go over this floodgate right here. And the water continues moving further south down the river. Now that surge seems to have passed. Maybe the houses right on the water will get flooded, but it might be all right unless it's planning to rise any higher, which it may very well do. But down here, things are still pretty normal. Traffic going, trains on time. Now, I'm thinking we may start losing some electricity because all of these windmills are going offline, but the nuclear power plant will probably compensate for that. The river has certainly got much wider, though. It's completely flooded out this area. The water is completely above the bunkers and flooding out the zoo and a bunch of parked cars. And probably some people who are casually strolling through floodwaters like they always do in this game. Or bicyclists kamikazing the water. I'll beat you, water. I'll beat you. I'll beat you. I'll beat you still. Sitrep. This neighborhood is flooded out now, and I imagine the entire Murphy Park District area should be evacuated now. Waters are starting to rise on our primary dikes in this area. And on this area, well, it's not quite gotten up to the dike yet, and it's just starting to flow into the Oran Summers spillway. This neighborhood, our commercial tourist district, seems all right for now, but that may change very quickly. And it seems like it is just starting to flow into the Asinine River. It'll be interesting to see if it bypasses my dike here by just flooding around here. It could go that high. I mean, if it's... Whoa. It's gone up enough to flood this neighborhood pretty well. So I wouldn't be surprised if some dikes were completely bypassed. Look at these guys. They're just getting on with their work. They don't care that they're driving in 2 meters of water. Still got to pick up that garbage. And this guy in his car. This is a city of hardy people. I think this is the first time that a flood has overflown this sort of dam here and started going into the spillway from here. And now it is going into the Oran spillway with quite a bit of force. But the water seems to have gone down on this dike, but it has risen slightly over here and is making its way downriver. So things are really starting to ramp up now. It's pretty much flooded out a big portion of Murphy Park, and it seems to be going to be hitting this area from behind, bypassing the dike system, the Cherry District, because the water really wants to go straight. The problem with these curvy ways is when the water flows, it really wants to go straight. So the areas like this that are kind of in its way get pretty flooded while it gets deflected towards in another direction. And the same thing is sort of happening here because it wants to go the way it wants to go. And I imagine it's going to happen here and probably down here. This is a big one, that's for sure. The Oran spillway is being useful for diverting some of that water away and down or to the west, while this is also diverting some water down that way. Although the flow seems to be going towards this way from here and then meeting here. I'm sure once the water gets higher, the flow will eventually start to flow that way. Water is really starting to get pretty high on these dikes and almost overflowing this one. I mean, that's a big flood wall, and it's almost to the top, maybe a foot or two more, and it's going to overflow like it kind of is right now. Oh, there we go. This flood wall is overflowing now. This one still has a ways to go, so this neighborhood might be all right, but I have a feeling this one, it seems to have sorted itself out now. The other danger is it may divert down this way, and the problem with this bridge is I don't really have any way of making it go over a flood wall and then connect with this road without demolishing this area. So the big risk is the water rising too much here and then flooding this area out. If that happens, I may need to think the roads for this district a little bit. Burp. But this area is suffering pretty hard. The water is slowly starting to creep up on Briarwood Park, flooding out the flooding out the park for the Parkwood district, or Briarwood, whatever, Manor Heights. That's what it is. Manor Heights and then Briarwood Park. Flooding out the bicycle paths. I mean, path. This isn't that much different. That bicyclist just saw that and went, no, I'm going the other way. Alright, it's starting to flood over the Cherry District dike. Flooding out an area that's pretty used to getting flooded out. I was so lucky in the past few floods, finally they were dry, but this time, not so much. It's also flooding from behind to this area. This area is still pretty severely flooded out. This area looks alright. The Insane River still has a ways to go before it actually gets high enough to threaten Elk Heights. Elsewhere, everything seems alright. This is flooded out like it always is. And this dike is holding. It's getting rather close, but it's holding. Oh, yeah, this is what I feared would happen. This area is flooding from behind because of this bridge being flooded by the flood protection. How ironic. Oh, irony, you ironic. It also seems to be flooding this area from behind as well. The Sommer home that once belonged to Oran Sommers is under risk yet again. So we've had 2 dike failures so far. 2 of the flood protection projects in the city have failed. Now, will there be more? This area is flooded pretty well, more than ever before. This bridge is flooded out, but bicyclists are like, hey, water, I'm not scared of you. Oh, finally, finally, they got a brain and thought, this. Oh, well, that cop was dumb, and those two bicyclists, and that one, and that one. By the way, I have put, due to quite a few requests, I have put this map on the Steam Workshop. It is called Peppers Flood Map. So if you want to try out your own flood city, go onto the Steam Workshop and download that map, give it a shot. I also put in the instructions of how to use it and what mods that are required in order to make it work properly. So if you want to do that, check it out. If you want to make your own flood city videos, I highly recommend that you do. I'd like to see how you handle it as well. So go download it right now, you wonderful people. Another situation report is this area is starting to get flooded as well. The Orchard Square. Not too much, but there's just a sort of low section that goes along the coast. Oh, right, I built a little bit of a dike here, which seems to have not worked. It probably would have worked if I made it go all the way up here, but my rule is I cannot modify flood protection once the flood has started. So I'll just have to take note of that for next time. Because it seems like this flood wall would have worked had it been just gone up along here. Silly design error. But that bridge is out of service now. Over here, this flood wall seems to be handling it. There has been a few little moments where it's overflown. But this area is pretty flooded out, as it has been 1,000 times before. But it does seem water levels have gone down a little bit, actually. Or at least along the spillway. Back up here, we still have a very flooded area with at least a few dozen houses that are underwater. School out of commission, and a few more dozen houses underwater. But other than those areas, and of course this area is flooded like it always is, because it always floods, but the main commercial district still seems to be all right. Quite a lot of water going down the creek now, though. I wonder if it's... it's overflowing, starting to flow into the spillway, leading it away from the city. On this dike, it's starting to overflow into the spillway. Just starting to overflow this dike into the spillway. But of course, we also have the third line of defense, the flood wall that goes around this area. Down here, where I'm sort of worried it might flood the big area from the back, it seems like it's all right. Although I'm sure it hasn't gone up as much as it's going to. And look at all these poor commuters. Poor them. Stuck in the water. Now, I haven't been paying much attention to this flood wall over the oldest area of the city, but it seems to be holding quite nicely. Water isn't that high on it. This flood is really quite underwater, though. Only the tips of the trees sticking out. And the park and bike lane above, or on the water of the commercial tourist district is a bit flooded, but it's not too bad. I just wanted to take a look at the currents. We have strong currents coming down from the north, going around the bend. Pretty weak currents going into the spillway, but it does get stronger once this water it goes into the Asinine River, and it joins up with this water where it's flowing quite quickly. And we have the current going strongly down the Asinine River, and still pretty weak down here, stronger up here on the Rouge, but we'll see what happens. Well, things are looking pretty serious right now. We have pretty severe flooding in this neighborhood in Murphy Park. The neighborhood that has pretty much always been flooded, and every flood except the last two is currently flooded out mainly because of this bridge here. I'm going to have to redesign how this, maybe move the bridge further up so I can extend the flood walls further, because it's basically flooding off of the spillway, which is supposed to prevent that, which isn't exactly the greatest design. This area, the park here is completely underwater. The water is extremely high and getting close to our tourist district. The residential neighborhood of Orchard Square is getting some moderate flooding. How close is it to... It's still got a ways to go to start being a problem for this neighborhood, but it's getting there. It has, oh, geez. Well, that is a big deal. It's overflowing the flood wall, protecting the most populous area of the city. The spillway and the dike have not been enough to hold it back. This could be the greatest disaster this city has ever seen. And on that note, I guess you'll have to see what happens in part 2, because this is going to be a longer one. So I'm going to leave it on a bit of a cliffhanger now that this area is starting to get flooded. So until the next episode of Flood City, good night.